In September of 2024, we traveled to Las Vegas for a 3-week Grand Circle RV trip to the West. Each of this 6-part video series starts with a map overview of where we traveled. We flew to Las Vegas late in the evening, starting early the next day with a morning of birding at a local preserve. Then we picked up our home for the next 3 weeks, driving through the desert to our first night's stop at Valley of Fire State Park. The next morning we stopped for some more birding, visited a dinosaur footprint museum, and a ghost town before arriving at Zion National Park, where we would camp for the next 2 days. Our first morning we visited the Henderson Bird Preserve, a decommissioned treatment plant still used for water table recharging, that has become one of the best birding spots in Nevada. Walking around, you would not believe you were only a few miles away from the Vegas Strip. It is a haven for both migratory and resident birds. Our home for the next 3 weeks came from Blackstone RV Rentals of Winnebago Echo. It is the latest design for RV travel, all-wheel drive with a 10-speed transmission, solar panels on top for power, a kitchen complete with microwave and huge refrigerator, a sleeping space with 2 twin beds that can convert into a queen side, and a bathroom that converts from a sink and toilet to a shower. We drove along the top of Lake Mead to discover that the area is the northern part of the Mojave Desert. It was beautiful, but hot. Valley of Fire is the oldest state park in Nevada, a stunningly beautiful outcrop of sandstone, eroded into shapes in water pockets, so called for the life-saving water that pooled in them. The Otlao campground was our stop for the evening where, hot and tired, we relaxed in the air-conditioned RV. We had hoped for our first dark sky evening, but clouds and haze came in, and in the morning the added smell confirmed our suspicions that it was smoke from the nearby California wildfires. We visited Otlotl Rock, containing the first ancient native petroglyphs we would see, including drawings of an otlotl, their word for a spear thrower. We then could only drive the White Domes and Mouse Tank roads, since trails were closed, and hiking was forbidden due to the heat. We headed northeast, first stopping at the Overton Wildlife Area for some birding. It was dry and hot, so the marshes were not full of migratory birds, but we birdied around for a couple hours. The next stop was the Dinosaur Footprint Museum, created when workers uncovered a large area of footprints. The owner decided to build a museum over the area to protect it. Our last stop was the ghost town of Grafton, sitting in the shadow of the Court of the Patriarchs of Zion National Park. It is one of the many abandoned Mormon communities that were established in the 19th century. Grafton has several restored buildings in it that were used in the famous Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head scene in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Nothing seems to fit. Those raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling. So I just did me some time.
We arrived late in the afternoon to Zion National Park, where we were lucky to have reservations in the Watchman Campground. The Watchman Mountain looms right next to your campsite, so we relaxed and enjoyed our first clear dark sky night. The next morning we got up early to catch the early bus into the canyon. Zion does not allow private vehicles into it anymore. Instead, they have a fleet of electric buses that take you to stops along the way. We traveled to the last stop first, and took the Virgin River Trail, seeing lots of birds and wildlife along the way. The trail ends in the river where, if you wish, you can walk up the river to the Narrows, a part of the canyon barely wide enough to stretch your arms. We thought better of the idea and started our trip back through each of the stops. One of the stops was for the Angel's Landing Trail, a long, difficult, but extremely popular hike to the top of the canyon. In the parking lot was a woman with a tracking device for California condors. We were extremely lucky to see one of the 4 that had been hanging out in the canyon. We started the hike to the Emerald Pools when I discovered I left my phone on a bus, so that cut the day short as we went and retrieved it. Tired and with the sun setting, we relaxed and enjoyed our last night at the Watchman. We awoke early and watched sunrise at the Court of the Patriarchs, then headed out to the east, up the Zion Mount Carmel Road. The famous tunnel was built in the Depression and is too narrow for larger vehicles, like ours, so you have to pay and go through on alternating one-way times. If you are lucky to find a space, a small parking lot on the other side leads you up the steep but short hike to the Zion Canyon overlook, perhaps the most beautiful view of the canyon. We headed down into the east, past the huge ancient sand dune beds of the Navajo sandstone and the peculiar weathering of the checkerboard mesa. Exiting the east side of the park, in Mount Carmel, we stopped for a late breakfast at the famous Thunderbird restaurant. It started in the 1930s as a gas station when the tunnel was built. The owner's wife baked pies to sell to people who stopped at the station. It is now famous for its homemade pie, especially hot apple pie with caramel sauce. We were ready to start the next phase of the trip, 5 days on the scenic Route 12.